Imagine standing on the deck of a massive cargo ship. Thousands of containers stacked high against the horizon. Steel, electronics, grain, the lifeblood of the modern world. It looks solid. It looks permanent. But beneath the surface, the water is draining away. The engine room is burning. And the captain isn't steering away from the iceberg. He is steering directly toward it. We are told that trade is just business. We are told that tariffs are just taxes. We are told that the global economy is a self-correcting machine that always finds balance. That is a lie. We are living through the dismantling of the global order. But the scary part isn't the trade war. Trade wars are just the smoke. The fire is something much more dangerous. Something that touches the money in your bank account. The pension you've worked for. The bread on your table. Every single major trade conflict in history has followed the same devastating path. It starts with goods. It ends with currency. It starts with a tax on steel. It ends with the destruction of purchasing power. We are watching a mechanism click into place. A doomsday machine with 6 specific stages of escalation. And we are already past the halfway point. Most people are looking at the price of gas or the stock market. They are missing the tidal wave that is building up behind the dam. When a trade war turns into a currency war, the rules of survival change instantly. Assets you thought were safe become liabilities. Safe havens become traps. And the money you hold becomes a weapon used against you. Today, we are going to walk through the 6 stages of this escalation. We are going to show you exactly where we are right now. And we are going to show you what happens next. Because when the currency war begins in earnest, there are no spectators. Only casualties and survivors. Before we walk into the fire, I need you to do one thing. If you want to understand the mechanics of the world while everyone else is distracted by the noise, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video to help us bypass the algorithm that prefers mindless entertainment over economic survival. And I want you to answer me this in the comments below. This is not a rhetorical question. When the currency resets, what is the one asset you trust to hold its value? Is it gold, Bitcoin, land, or ammunition? Let me know your answer below. Now, let's look at the mechanism. To understand the future, we have to understand the trap we are already in. This is stage 1. The tariff trap. It always begins with a promise of protection. A politician stands up and says, "They are cheating us. They are stealing our jobs. They are dumping cheap goods into our markets." And usually, they are right. Global trade is not a game of friends holding hands. It is a knife fight in a phone booth. So, the government imposes a tariff. A tax on imports. On the surface, this looks like strength. It looks like taking control. It feels patriotic. Let's make our own steel. Let's build our own cars. Let's protect our factories. The audience cheers. The markets might even rally for a moment, thinking domestic companies will win. But here is what they don't tell you in the press conference. A tariff is not a tax on the other country. It is a tax on the consumer. But more importantly, it is the first shot in a war of attrition. When you slap a tariff on a foreign power, you are disrupting a complex flow of capital that has existed for decades. Think of the global economy like a massive, high-pressure pipeline. Trillions of dollars flowing east to west, goods flowing west to east. Stage 1 is when someone tries to close a valve on that pipeline. But the pressure inside the pipe doesn't just disappear. It builds up. If a country cannot sell its goods to you, it cannot get the dollars it needs to pay its debts. If they cannot get dollars, their own economy starts to suffocate. Do you think they will just sit there and die? Do you think they will say, "Oh well, fair play"? No. They will panic. And then, they will calculate. In stage 1, the rhetoric is still polite. Diplomats fly back and forth. They call it a dispute. They file complaints with the World Trade Organization. It all seems very bureaucratic and civilized. But underneath, the corporate sector starts to freak out. Supply chains that took 30 years to build are suddenly at risk. A factory in Ohio that relies on a specific bolt made in Shenzhen suddenly sees its costs triple. A farmer in Iowa who sells soy to Shanghai suddenly sees his orders cancelled. This is the phony war. It feels manageable. The news anchors talk about percentage points and basis points. They treat it like a math problem. But it's not math. It's psychology. And the psychology is shifting from cooperation to conflict. History shows us that stage 1 never lasts long. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 was supposed to protect American farmers. It was supposed to be a shield. Instead, it triggered a global collapse in trade that deepened the Great Depression. Why? Because the people who wrote the law didn't understand the second-order effects. They didn't understand that when you punch someone in the face, they don't analyze the physics of the punch. They punch back. And that brings us to the inevitable slide into the next phase. The moment where the dispute becomes a conflict. The moment the gloves come off. This is stage 2. Retaliation. This is where the logic of economics is replaced by the logic of ego and pain. The targeted country does not just want to balance the books. They want to inflict damage. They want to show that they cannot be bullied. So they don't just tax your goods back. They target your political weaknesses. Notice how this happens in the modern world. If the US puts a tariff on Chinese tech, China doesn't just put a tariff on US tech. They target agriculture. Why? Because farmers vote. They target the industries that are politically sensitive to the leader who started the trade war. This is strategic targeting. It is the weaponization of commerce. But stage 2 is where the cracks in the real economy start to show. Prices start to creep up. Not hyperinflation yet, just a steady, annoying rise. Businesses stop investing. Why build a new factory if you don't know the rules of the game for next year? Why hire new workers if your export market might disappear overnight? So, growth slows down. Uncertainty rises. And the stock market starts to get choppy. Volatility enters the system. The buy the dip crowd starts to get nervous because the dips keep getting deeper. But here is the crucial link to currency. When trade volumes drop, the demand for currency shifts. If China is selling less to the US, they are earning fewer dollars. If Europe is selling less to Asia, the demand for the euro fluctuates. The currency markets, which are usually the most liquid and stable markets in the world, start to twitch. Traders smell blood. They realize that the governments are locked in a stalemate. Neither side can back down without losing face. Neither side can afford to look weak. So they double down. More tariffs. More restrictions. More tough talk. And the pressure in that pipeline we talked about, it is now reaching critical levels. The pipes are groaning. Something has to give. And since neither side will give on trade, the pressure moves to the financial system. This is the pivot point. This is where the script flips from a story about cargo ships to a story about bank accounts. Because when a country realizes it cannot win on the trade front, when it realizes that tariffs are not enough, it reaches for a bigger gun. It reaches for the financial levers. This is where the casual observer gets bored and tunes out, and this is exactly where you need to pay the most attention. Because what happens next is not about taxes. It is about the very foundation of value. We are now crossing a line. We are moving from visible warfare to invisible warfare. Trade wars are fought in ports and factories. They are noisy. You can see the ships sitting idle. You can see the price tags changing at the store. But stage 3 is silent. It happens on computer screens in central banks. It happens in the encrypted channels of global finance. Stage 3 is reserve shifts. This is the moment a nation decides to weaponize its savings. Every major country holds reserves. Think of it as a national emergency fund. For the last 80 years, most of that emergency fund has been held in US dollars and US Treasury bonds. This is what we call the exorbitant privilege. The US gets to print money, and the rest of the world holds it as a store of value. It allows the US to run massive deficits without suffering the consequences. But what happens when you are in a trade war with the country that holds your debt? What happens when the customer decides to stop buying your product? In stage 3, the rival nations start to dump your debt. They stop buying your bonds. Or worse, they start selling the ones they already own. This is the financial equivalent of a nuclear threat. If a major holder of US debt, like China or Japan, suddenly dumps billions of treasuries onto the open market, interest rates in the US would skyrocket. Mortgages would double. Credit cards would freeze. The government's borrowing costs would explode, making the deficit unmanageable. It is a way of saying, if you crash my economy with tariffs, I will crash your financial system with debt. We have seen the early warning signs of this already. Central banks around the world have been quietly buying gold at a record pace. Why? Because they are diversifying away from the dollar. They are preparing for a world where the dollar is a weapon, not a shield. They are shifting their reserves. This creates a subtle but dangerous instability. The demand for the dominant currency weakens. The yields on bonds start to creep up, not because the economy is hot, but because nobody wants to lend money anymore. This is the bond vigilante phase. Investors start to look at the government and say, I don't trust you. I don't trust that you can pay this back in money that is worth anything. So they demand a higher return. This tightens the noose around the economy even tighter than the tariffs did. But the governments are trapped. They can't admit weakness. So they start to use propaganda. They tell you that foreign adversaries are manipulating the market. They tell you that buying domestic bonds is a patriotic duty. They might even force domestic banks to buy the government debt that foreigners are rejecting. This is called financial repression. And it is the hallmark of stage 3. They are using your own banks to bail out their failed foreign policy. But this shift in reserves triggers a defensive reaction. If money is flowing out of a country, if investors are scared and moving their capital to safer places, the value of the domestic currency starts to fall. Normally, a central bank would raise interest rates to defend the currency, to make it attractive to hold. But they can't, because their economy is already slowing down from the trade war. If they raise rates, they crush their own businesses. If they lower rates, their currency collapses. Checkmate. They are stuck. And when a government is stuck, when they run out of good options, they choose the bad option. They choose the option that violates the principles of a free market. They decide that if money won't stay in the country voluntarily, they will make it a prisoner. Welcome to stage 4. Capital controls. This is the stage where the walls go up. Not walls of concrete, but digital walls. Imagine logging into your bank account to wire money to a relative abroad, or to pay a supplier, or to buy an international stock. And you get a pop-up message. Transaction declined. Limit exceeded. Regulatory approval required. Service temporarily unavailable. This is not a technical glitch. This is the gate slamming shut. Capital controls are the government's way of saying, you are not allowed to leave. We have seen this in history time and time again. We saw it in Iceland, in Greece, in Argentina, in Russia, in Lebanon. When the currency starts to bleed, the government locks the doors. They limit how much cash you can withdraw. They limit how much gold you can buy. They force exporters to convert their foreign earnings into the local currency immediately, usually at a terrible exchange rate. This is a desperate measure. It screams weakness, but they sell it as stability. They say it is to prevent speculation. They say it is to stop hoarders. But the reality is, they are trapping your liquidity to keep their system afloat. In a trade war escalation, this happens when the reserve shifts of stage 3 have drained too much blood from the system. The currency is falling too fast, so they stop the flow. But here is the irony of capital controls. The moment you tell people they can't take their money out, that is the moment everyone tries to take their money out. Panic sets in. A black market for currency emerges instantly. People start trading cash in back alleys. Crypto usage spikes. People buy luxury watches, cars, anything that holds value, just to get out of the dying currency. The official exchange rate says one thing. The street rate says something completely different. The economy splits in two. There is the official economy, which is a lie. And there is the shadow economy, which is the only place real business happens. For a global superpower, capital controls are a humiliation. They are an admission that the market has lost faith in the empire. But when survival is on the line, pride goes out the window. If a country feels that its trade rival is draining its capital, it will lock down the system. And if you are holding your wealth in that system, you are trapped in the burning building with the doors locked from the outside. But the sharks are circling. The world's predators, the hedge funds, the macro traders, the algorithmic speculators, they smell the fear. They see the capital controls. They see the bleeding reserves. And they know that the government is lying about the value of the currency. They know the dam is about to break, and they decide to help it break. This brings us to stage 5. Speculative attacks. This is the most violent phase of the financial war. This is not about governments anymore. This is about the market punishing a government for its arrogance. Think of a pack of wolves isolating a wounded bison. The bison is big. It looks strong, but it is bleeding. The wolves don't attack all at once. They nip at the heels. They test the defenses. In the financial world, this is called shorting the currency. Traders borrow billions of the target currency and sell it instantly, betting that the price will crash. They are effectively voting with their dollars that the country is going to fail. The central bank tries to fight back. They use their remaining foreign reserves to buy their own currency, trying to prop up the price. It is a tug of war. On one side, the global market with trillions of dollars in liquidity. On the other side, a central bank with a limited pile of cash. Who do you think wins? The market always wins eventually. We saw this in 1992 when George Soros broke the Bank of England. We saw this in the Asian financial crisis of 1997. When the speculators smell a peg that is unsustainable, they attack with the force of a tsunami. In a trade war context, this attack is often encouraged by the rival nation. If country A is fighting country B, and speculators start attacking country B's currency, country A sits back and smiles. They might even quietly encourage it. Look, they say. Their economy is unstable. Their leadership is failing. The speculative attack drives the currency value down rapidly. 10%, 20%, 30% in a week. This is catastrophic for the regular people. Imported goods vanish from the shelves. Medicine becomes scarce. Fuel prices double overnight. The middle class watches their savings evaporate in real time. They are millionaires on paper, but paupers in reality. The psychological toll here is immense. Trust in institutions collapses completely. People stop looking at the government for answers and start looking for scapegoats. Civil unrest begins. Protests. Riots. The government, desperate to stay in power, blames the foreign speculators and the trade war enemies. They ramp up the nationalism. They say, "We are under attack." And they are right. But they fail to mention that they built the trap themselves. The speculative attack forces the currency to find its true floor. And usually, that floor is in the basement. But here is the twist. Here is the paradox that leads us to the final, most dangerous stage. When a currency crashes, the country's exports become incredibly cheap. If your money is worth half as much, your labor is half as expensive to the outside world. Suddenly, your steel, your cars, your grain are the cheapest on the planet. So, the trade war that started this whole mess? Suddenly, the country with the crashed currency starts winning it. They start flooding the world with cheap goods again. The country that started the trade war, the one that tried to protect its industries, suddenly sees a wave of imports coming in, even cheaper than before. The tariffs are useless because the currency devaluation has completely negated them. So what does the first country do? Do they accept defeat? Do they say, "Well, the market has spoken"? Absolutely not. They view this devaluation as an act of war. They say, they are manipulating their currency to cheat us. And so, they decide to do the only thing left. If you devalue, I devalue. If you race to the bottom, I will beat you there. This leads to stage 6. Coordinated devaluation, also known as the currency war proper. This is the scorched earth phase. This is where every major nation enters the race to destroy their own money. It sounds insane. Why would a country want to destroy its own money? Because in a global depression, a strong currency is a death sentence for exports. Everyone wants a cheaper currency to keep their factories running and their workers employed. So, Central Bank A prints 1 trillion units. Central Bank B sees this and prints 2 trillion. Central Bank C panics and prints 3 trillion. It is a spiral. A race to see who can steal the most growth from their neighbor by debasing their own coin. This is the 1930s all over again. Beggar thy neighbor policies. The result is a global flood of liquidity. Cash is everywhere, but value is nowhere. Asset prices, stocks, real estate, might soar to the moon in nominal terms. The Dow Jones might hit 100,000, but a loaf of bread might cost $50. This is the illusion of wealth masking the reality of poverty. During Stage 6, the global trade system breaks down completely. Nobody knows what anything is worth because the measuring stick, the money itself, is changing length every day. Contracts become impossible to write. Long-term investment stops because you can't calculate a return on investment when the currency is melting. Trust evaporates. And when trust evaporates, trade stops. Ships stay in the ports. Shelves go empty. The globalized world, which relies on the seamless flow of goods and capital, fractures into pieces. We stop being a global economy. We break into blocks. Friend shoring. Closed loops. You only trade with your allies. You only use your own payment systems. The dollar system for the West. The brick system for the East. The Internet of Money splits in two. This is the climax of the escalation. The point of no return. We have gone from a dispute over the price of washing machines to the collapse of the unified global monetary system. And the terrifying thing is, looking at the headlines today, looking at the tariffs, the sanctions, the gold buying, the rhetoric, we are not looking at a hypothetical scenario. We are looking at a weather report. The storm is not coming. It is already raining. Let's pause for a second and let the gravity of this sink in. We are talking about the dissolution of value. Most people living in the West, or in stable economies, have never experienced this. They think money is a constant, like gravity, or the speed of light. They think a dollar is a dollar. A euro is a euro. But history laughs at that idea. History is a graveyard of dead currencies. The Roman denarius, the French assignat, the Weimar mark, the Confederate dollar, the Zimbabwean dollar. They all died the same death. They were weaponized by the state to fight wars, military wars or economic wars, until they had no value left. Stage 6 is the modern version of this death spiral. But today, it moves at the speed of fiber optics. So, what does the world look like when the dust settles? What happens after the devaluation war? Because the world doesn't end. People still need to eat. They still need to trade. Life goes on. But the rules are rewritten. We enter the era of hard assets and monetary blocks. When fiat currencies, paper money backed by nothing but faith, are being debased by everyone at the same time, the world looks for an anchor. Something that cannot be printed. Something that cannot be hacked. Something that doesn't have a politician's face on it. This is the return of the kings. Gold. Commodities. Energy. In the aftermath of Stage 6, nations don't trust each other's paper. China won't take U.S. treasuries. The U.S. won't take Chinese bonds. Russia won't take euros. So how do they settle trade imbalances? They go back to the basics. I will give you oil if you give me gold. I will give you microchips if you give me rare earth metals. Barter returns, but on a sovereign level. This is already beginning. Look at the central banks buying gold. They are preparing for the day when the dollar is no longer the golden ticket. They are preparing for a neutral reserve asset. And this creates a massive redistribution of wealth. The countries that have resources, oil, gas, metals, agriculture, become the new power centers. The countries that only have services and financial products find themselves in a crisis. You cannot eat a derivative. You cannot heat your home with a hedge fund algorithm. The balance of power shifts from the financialized economies to the commodity-based economies. And for the individual, for you, this is the most dangerous transition of your life. Because if you are holding all your wealth in paper assets, bonds, cash, insurance policies, you are holding claims on a system that is defaulting. Not a hard default where they say, "We won't pay," but a soft default where they pay you back in money that buys half as much. The winners in this new world are the ones who own things. Tangible things. Productive land. Precious metals. Energy production. Or, potentially, decentralized digital assets that exist outside the banking system. Though that is a volatile bet, it is a bet against the system. Let's visualize the human cost of this transition. It's not just lines on a chart. It's the retiree opening their pension statement and realizing that even though the number went up, they can't afford the heating bill. It's the young family realizing that the house they saved for is now priced in a currency they can't earn fast enough. It's the business owner realizing that their supply chain is broken because their currency is not accepted by the supplier in Vietnam or Brazil. This is the friction of a breaking system. And it breeds political extremism. When the economic pie shrinks, people fight harder for the crumbs. We will see the rise of populism on steroids. Governments will promise to punish the speculators and restore our glory. They will implement price controls. They will tell shopkeepers how much they can charge for milk, which, of course, leads to shortages. We have seen this movie before, but this time it is in IMAX. This time it is global. There is no safe country to run to, because every major economy is playing the same game. The US, China, Europe, Japan. They are all indebted. They are all aging. They are all printing. The trade war was just the trigger. The currency war is the inevitable result of a debt-based system reaching its mathematical limit. The trade war is the symptom. The currency war is the disease. And the reset is the cure. But the cure is painful. We need to talk about the B word. BRICS. For decades, the G7, the club of wealthy Western democracies, ran the show. They set the rules of trade. They controlled the SWIFT payment system. They controlled the reserve currency. But the escalation through these 6 stages is forcing the rest of the world to build a lifeboat. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now their new members, are not just a photo op club. They are a defensive reaction to the weaponization of the dollar. When the US confiscated Russia's reserves in 2022, it sent a shockwave through the global south. Every finance minister in the non-Western world looked at their accounts and thought, if it can happen to Russia, it can happen to us. If we disagree with American foreign policy, our money can disappear. This accelerated Stage 3, reserve shifts, and Stage 6, coordinated devaluation/new blocks, significantly. They are actively building a parallel financial system. A system that does not rely on New York or London. They are trading in yuan, in rupees, in rubles, and they are discussing a new reference currency backed by a basket of commodities. If this happens, if a viable alternative to the dollar emerges, the escalation we talked about goes into overdrive. Because the dollar's value depends on everyone needing it. If 40% of the global population suddenly decides they don't need it to buy oil, trillions of dollars come rushing back home to the US. That creates domestic inflation like we have never seen. This is the geopolitical checkmate. The trade war forces the rivals to innovate. It forces them to become independent. By trying to isolate them with tariffs and sanctions, the West is actually forcing them to build the very infrastructure that will challenge Western dominance. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you squeeze, the more they build their own pipes. And when those pipes are built, the flow of wealth changes direction forever. Now, let's look at the X factor. Technology. In previous currency wars, money moved at the speed of telegraph or fax. Today, it moves at the speed of light. But technology also offers a wild card: crypto and CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. As the currency war heats up, governments will rush to launch CBDCs. Why? Because a digital dollar or digital yuan is the ultimate tool for Stage 4, capital controls. If the money is programmable, the government can literally turn off your ability to buy foreign currency. They can program the money to expire if you don't spend it. They can track every single transaction to ensure you aren't evading tariffs or sanctions. CBDCs are the dream weapon for a government fighting a currency war. They allow for total control. On the flip side, we have decentralized crypto like Bitcoin. This is the exit hatch. For the first time in history, the people have a way to opt out of the currency war without buying physical gold bars. This is why the battle lines are being drawn around crypto regulation. Governments hate it because it breaks their capital controls. They hate it because it allows value to move across borders without their permission. Expect the war on crypto to intensify as we move through Stage 5 and 6. They will call it money laundering. They will call it terrorist financing. But the real reason is that it creates a leak in their closed system. And in a currency war, leaks are fatal. So, where do we stand right now? Look at the checklist. Tariffs? Yes. Everywhere. Retaliation? Yes. China is hitting back. Europe is hitting back. Reserve shifts? Yes. Central banks are buying gold and dumping treasuries. Capital controls? We are seeing the soft version. Sanctions are a form of capital control. Limits on investment are appearing. Speculative attacks? The yen has been under pressure. Emerging market currencies are shaking. The sharks are circling. Coordinated devaluation? We are in the early innings. Everyone is tolerating higher inflation to burn away their debts. We are somewhere between Stage 3 and Stage 4, with flashes of Stage 5. The train has left the station. It is picking up speed. And the bridge ahead is out. The narrative that everything is fine is a facade. It is designed to keep you calm while the smart money exits the theater. You don't have to be a victim of this. History rewards those who see the avalanche before the snow starts moving. The people who bought gold in the 1970s. The people who shorted the housing market in 2007. The people who understand that peace and stability are the exception, not the rule. Conflict is the historical norm. And we are reverting to the mean. The psychology of the masses is your biggest enemy in this scenario. Most people operate on normalcy bias. They believe that tomorrow will be roughly the same as today. They believe that because the dollar has been strong for their entire lives, it will be strong forever. They believe that because the store shelves are full today, they will be full next month. This bias is what keeps people frozen when the crisis hits. They wait for the authorities to fix it. They wait for the all-clear signal. But in a currency war, by the time the signal comes, your wealth has already been transferred. Wealth is never destroyed, it is merely transferred. During the German hyperinflation of the 1920s, the middle class was wiped out. Their savings became worthless. But the people who had borrowed heavily to buy industrial assets, they became the new kings. They paid off their debts with worthless paper and kept the factories. Inflation is a tax on those who hold currency and a subsidy for those who hold debt and assets. Understanding this mechanism is the difference between poverty and prosperity. The trade war is the smoke signal telling you that the fire is coming. It is telling you that the era of cheap goods and stable money is ending. It is telling you to get your house in order. Let's look at the timeline. How fast does this happen? It happens slowly, then all at once. Hemingway's description of bankruptcy applies perfectly to currency collapse. We could stay in the tariff and retaliation phase for years, grinding slowly. But once confidence breaks, once we hit Stage 5, the slide to Stage 6 can happen in weeks. A sudden geopolitical shock. A failed bond auction. A banking crisis. Any of these can be the spark that ignites the gas that has been leaking into the room. You do not want to be trying to buy insurance when the house is already on fire. You need to position yourself now. This means looking at your exposure. Are you 100% dependent on the domestic economy? Are you 100% in cash? Are you holding assets that rely on global supply chains that are breaking? The answers to these questions are personal, but the urgency is universal. We are witnessing the end of the post-World War II order. Bretton Woods is dead. The petrodollar is dying. Globalization is reversing. This is not pessimism. This is observation. To ignore these signs is to ignore reality. The escalation from trade war to currency war is not a possibility. It is a historical inevitability. When empires clash, they fight with every weapon they have. And the most potent weapon is the printing press. They will print until the system breaks, and then they will blame the other guy. They will say it was Putin's price hike, or China's supply chain, or speculators. But you will know the truth. You will know that this was a 6-stage descent that they chose to walk down. Step by step. Blindly. Arrogantly. Taking you along for the ride. As we stand here, looking at the trajectory of the global economy, it is easy to feel small. It is easy to feel powerless. Trillion-dollar forces are colliding above our heads. But knowledge is the only shield you have. By understanding the 6 stages, tariffs, retaliation, reserves, capital controls, speculation, devaluation, you have a map. You are not walking blind in the dark. You can see the road signs. When you see a new tariff announced, you won't just see a tax. You will see stage 1. When you hear about central banks buying gold, you will recognize stage 3. When you hear about a temporary limit on withdrawals, you will know it is stage 4. And you will know what comes next. You will not be panicked. You will be prepared. The world is changing. The easy days are behind us. We are entering a decade of friction, of conflict, and of hard choices. But chaos is also a ladder. For those who are awake, for those who are prepared, this transfer of wealth is an opportunity. Not just to survive, but to thrive. To build resilience. To become independent of a system that is failing. The currency war is coming. In many ways, it is already here. The paper in your pocket is a promise. And that promise is being broken, day by day, dollar by dollar. Don't wait for the official announcement. Because the official announcement will only come after the exits are closed. The trade war was just the opening ceremony. The currency war is the main event. And you are no longer a spectator. You are a participant. The choices you make in the coming months will define your financial future for the next decade. Do not rely on the news to tell you when to act. Trust the mechanism. Trust history. And trust your own eyes. If this analysis opened your eyes to the invisible war being fought over your wealth, share this video with a few people you know who are actually paying attention. The crowd will never understand until it is too late, but you and I, we know what's coming. I'll see you in the next video.